Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about different flex slots and build of one of the most popular decks in Standard, Gruul Aggro. And these videos always start off with looking at the non-flex slots, the things that you are kind of bought into playing by just playing this deck. So these are the non-flex slots of Red-Green Aggro in Standard. You pretty much have to play these 44 cards in the main deck and these 6 cards in the sideboard. If you want to pause the video and check these out, go ahead. But let's look at the options for the 16 cards in the main deck and the 9 cards in the sideboard. So these are our options. You're going to pick 16 of these 35 cards and 9 of these 24 cards. Let's talk about them. So notice there are some lands with this. There are only 18 lands that are non-flex slots, and the deck wants to be playing 21, maybe even 22 lands. So you're going to be selecting 4 of these lands to play. Now you can play a forest, help a little bit with your mana, be able to cast these green spells, especially if you're playing like Paw-Patrol Recruit or Sentinel the Nameless City or more Questing Druids or more Innkeeper's Talents. The forest might be valuable. Mountain is a great enters untapped. Red source, our deck is primarily red. Restless Ridgeline as a one of is really nice because it's good for our mana. However, it forces us to play this enters tapped land, which is not great, but it can give us some reach in the late game. So it's much worse in the early game, much better than the late game. Up to 4 Rockface Village. Rockface Village has target lizard, mouse, otter, or raccoon you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. However, the drawback is that you can only spend red mana with this land to cast creature spells, so it can make our mana much worse for non-creature spells. But by targeting Heartfire Hero and Emberheart Challenger, it activates their abilities and can turn Emberheart Challenger into a Howling Mine and can turn Heartfire Hero into just getting an extra +1/+1 counter every single turn without devoting a card to it. Plus the haste is pretty nice as well. And then Soulstone Sanctuary is just kind of another man land. I would put this in a similar category as Restless Ridgeline. It's much worse for our mana than Restless Ridgeline, but it comes in untapped. And then it stays a creature, so we don't have to keep devoting mana to it when we activate it. So you're going to select 4 of these lands, and then we have 12 more slots to pick. You can play Burst Lightning number 3 and 4. Burst Lightning is pretty cool because it automatically triggers prowess and can get small blockers out of the way. Up to 4 Hired Claw. Hired Claw is kind of nice, especially if you play some Rockface Village, because it can gain haste, but also it's effectively a 2-power 1-drop because it deals a damage on attack and deals a damage during combat damage, and it can become bigger over time, so it can be kind of a mana sink, which is really nice. You play at 4 Monastery Swiftspear if you're looking to be a little more prowessy. I mean, it's modern playable. It is just a very, very good hasty card. You can play up to 4 Torch the Tower. If you're worried about these small blockers, it's also pretty good against the Enduring cards. It's pretty good against Mosswood Dread Knight and very, very good against other aggro decks, which aggro is pretty popular. So playing up to 4 Torch the Tower is pretty solid. Though to be honest, I would want Torch the Tower to be Burst Lightning 5 through 8, not playing like an actual mix. Play up to 3 Paw-Patrol Recruit. Paw-Patrol Recruit is just a 2-power 1-drop with an Offspring, and it says whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than that creature. It's very good against removal spelly decks, which are going to exist as almost every deck can capitalize off of Paw-Patrol Recruit, but it's just not hyper aggressive if your opponent is not removing your creatures, so we don't really want to play a playset. You can play Snakeskin Veil to protect directly protect your creatures from these removal spells. The issue with that is we're kind of a tap out deck, so it's a little hard to leave that mana up. You can play an Obliterating Bolt, pretty good against the Enduring cards and can get a lot of stuff out of the way. Deals with Zur, stuff like that. You can play Innkeeper's Talent 3 and 4. Innkeeper's Talent is a really good long-term card, also triggers Valiant, which is really relevant. If you level it up, it can make your creatures really difficult to remove because a lot of our creatures are getting +1/+1 counters from other things anyway. And it's just a great long-term card, even if it just stays at the first level. Speaking of long-term card, we could play Questing Druid number 3 in the main deck. It allows us to effectively draw cards at instant speed, and then also if Questing Druid goes unremoved, it can get absolutely massive and just win the game on its own. Play up to 3 Sentinel of the Nameless City. Sentinel of the Nameless City is just a very good blocker if you're going to be playing against aggro decks and can apply pressure while it's blocking. They could play up to 2 Witchstalker Frenzy, which can get large things like Shieldred out of the way if we have creatures. So you're going to pick 12 of these non-lands and 4 of these lands to be added to your deck, because these are the flex slots. As far as the sideboard goes, we're going to be picking 9 of these cards. We've already talked about Burst Lightning. The Manic Barrage, very good against the blue decks, very good against the new like Azorius Convoke, Azorius Curiosity deck, stuff like that. We've already talked about Torch the Tower, but mostly for these aggro decks. Obliterating Bolt, this way to get these things out of the way, especially these enduring cards. Pyroclasm is decent against Convoke mostly, especially since it'll trigger prowess on a lot of our creatures, so it's unlikely to kill our creatures. It's also decent against the aggro decks because you can kind of catch them off guard. Scorching Dragonfire deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If the creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. Very good against the enduring cards and can just get things out of the way. Scorching Shot is 2-mana sorcery, deals 5 damage to target creature. Can get things like Shieldred and other stuff out of the way. Urbrash Forge is for that long game. They board into answering your creatures 1-for-1. We can play Urbrash Forge and just embrace the long game because Urbrash Forge gets better and better as time goes on. We could play an additional Witchstalker Frenzy in the sideboard, again, to get these big things out of the way if we are a very creature-heavy variant of the deck. We can play up to 2 Snakeskin Veil to continue to protect against these removal spell-heavy decks. We can play a Paw Patch formation to be able to remove enchantments, also really good against Archfiend of the Dross and like other flyers like Sir. We can play Questing Druid 3 and 4 in the sideboard instead, for similar reasons that we would play it in the main deck. And Ghost Vacuum is decent for Graveyard Hate. However, it's like the only card that actually doesn't contribute to our primary game plan. It's just Graveyard Hate. So keep that in mind if you decide to play Ghost Vacuum. So you're going to select 9 of these 24 cards to add to your sideboard and 16 of these 35 cards to add to your main deck. And you have your very own red-green aggro deck, but stock deck thing. So there you have the flex slots and builds of Red Green Aggro in Standard. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.